the game that really Ryan McCafferty, I think, is just ready to explode to talk about. Let's discuss the marvelous Deus Ex.
This is a game that Warren Spector, who is a just visionary, a renowned game designer, he's not been as much in the public eye these days, so younger viewers may be wondering who he is. And when I say things like Ultima Underworld, they might go, huh? Or even Looking Glass. I mean, Warren Spector was part of Looking Glass, which is possibly the single greatest collection of game development talent ever assembled, and it was a short-lived time. But Deus Ex was a game. It was a first-person shooter, but it was a dynamic one.
Right.
You could
an RPG in many ways.
You're right. It was a sort of an ultimate fusion of a role-playing game and a first-person shooter. It sort of coined. I don't know if it coined the term, but it sort of defined the term emergent gameplay.
Yeah.
Where you could approach the missions were all these giant open-world areas. There was
like
Hong Kong.
Sandboxes.
Yeah, the sandbox. The first mission was what's the Statue of Liberty? Where's Ellis Island.
Ellis
Sorry,
Island,
I blanked on Ellis Island. And you had to, ultimately infiltrate your way in, and it's set in the future, and there are these humans have had these sort of implants. A lot of people know Deus Ex now from the reboot, Human Revolution, which was really good, and then there's a sequel to that coming. But the original Deus Ex with J.C. Denton was just it was a marvel. I mean, you could really play it stealthy. You could engage in conversations. You could shoot the heck out of everything. You could hack.
Right, and
you could do anything.
In a lot of ways, it's Metal Gear Solid 5-0.
Yeah, exactly. It's the beginning of that.
It is. It implanted that DNA into video game structure.
Yeah.
Also, if Daikatana gave us nothing else, it inadvertently gave us Deus Ex.
That's right. It was Ion Storm Austin, which was so. Famously, John Carmack, one of the creators of Doom, which of course covered in extensive detail back in our 1993 episode.
You mean John Romero, right?
What did I say?
Carmack.
Well, you're right. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Different John. Yeah, Romero started. He left id during the Quake development in 95. I guess that probably would have been because Quake was out in 96, and he founded Ion Storm. He was the golden boy at that time. He got Eidos to front millions of dollars. They got this high-rise studio in downtown Dallas for Romero's studio that set to work on in the penthouse.
Yeah.
Who's set to work on Daikatana. But then part of it, there were two other studios. There was Tom Hall's studio that made really underrated RPG with the Quake engine called Anachronox, which we're not covering now. But and then Warren Spector was also part of this. And Warren's always been in and around Austin, and he set up a shop, Ion Storm Austin, and out of that came Deus Ex.
Yeah, and I think what's amazing about Deus Ex is that it's one of those first great examples of developers introducing elements of choice where there weren't those elements before. Like the idea of a first-person shooter. Like even games like Call of Duty feel like, compared to the shooter of yesteryear, feels actually open in a way. Shooters for years were literally walking down corridors.
Yeah,
they were just literally walking down corridors, shooting whatever popped up at you. And so this was a game that not only freed you from the corridor, but it gave you it gave you decisions to make besides what gun to carry.
Right.
Yeah, there was a lot of consequence too with those.
Yes.
There were points where you could choose who lives or dies.
Yeah.
And at some points there were like specific mission parts that you would never see if you had killed somebody. You could go without finding a kill switch for a robot who was coming after you. You could choose to go over this lengthy shootout sequence, or just go, hey, you're dead, and then they'd explode.
Yeah, or you might find a sniper rifle and be like, wow, this is a cool weapon, I want to use this, but hey, you don't really have the greatest skills for making good use of it, so you try to aim with it, and it's just like...
There were 3 different
all over the
endings,
place.
and I remember the game being very long as well.
Yeah.
Shooters now are 8 to 12 hours.
Right.
This was a game that I recall, it was 30 to 40 hours. It was an epic endeavor. I remember, funny story for me, one of the games we're going to talk about next, Diablo 2, I was so excited for Diablo 2 because I loved Diablo 1 that I actually, believe it or not, Deus Ex and Diablo 2 came out within 2 weeks of each other.
Yeah.
So I didn't buy Deus Ex right away, and then I saw the reviews and all the critical praise. And when I finally got to Deus Ex, which was about 6 months later, it was all I could think about as I was playing it. I remember working in my college, I worked in the computer department at Staples for my college job. And I'd be working the night closing shift, and there'd be really nobody around. And I would wander off, just daydream. I would be thinking about Deus Ex and everything that had happened the night before, and that what am I going to do next?
Majestic 12.
Yeah.
And it was the game completely enveloped me in a way that few games have ever done.